Hello YouTube, welcome back to another alternate history presidential election video. Today I got the 1968 election between Richard Nixon and Hubert Humphrey, who were the nominees in the actual election, but however they had a strong third-party challenger in George Wallace, who ran with the American Independent Party, formerly a Democrat, but ran as an independent in 68 when he didn't win the Democratic nomination. He did take away a lot of votes, mainly in the South, where he did win a few states. However, in this alternate scenario, this is where if he didn't run, how would the election turn out? So anyway, we'll start on the West Coast here. I believe Nixon is still taking some state of California pretty well. Same with Oregon. However, Hubert Humphrey did take Washington. So it'd be interesting if he would still take it with Wallace not on the ballot. It was a pretty close state, and I guess, like I said, Wallace did take away pretty good votes in that state. But without him on the ballot, I think Nixon actually could take Washington, because I believe he did when he was running against Kennedy in 1960. And he won it in 72 for re-election, so I think he actually would take it without Wallace on the ballot. Same with these other states like Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, all these more conservative-leaning states back in the day. They still go pretty solid conservative, at least these four do. And same with Alaska here, I think that would go Nixon, as well as North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas. I think Oklahoma would go to him. Now remember, in 1968, Nixon did run on law and order, which is kind of what Wallace said too, because all the race riots in Vietnam and all of that. And of course, Johnson was becoming unpopular because I decided not to run for re-election anymore. I believe he dropped out after the New Hampshire primary, so Hubert became the nominee, the vice president. And like I said, this election was about Vietnam and the race riots and law and order, which Nixon ran on, was able to help him win. And so did Wallace, who took a few states in the South. However, Hubert Humphrey did take Texas still, and so did John F. Kennedy against Nixon. So possibly Hubert could still take Texas against Nixon without Wallace on the ballot, because I believe Hubert did get good support from like Hispanics, who've actually turned out pretty good this year in the state. And even with Wallace on the ballot, like I said, he still took it, so I think he could summarily take it against Nixon since he did win it, even with Wallace on the ballot. However, these other states over here, I believe, would go Nixon, because Nixon, like I said, is for law and order, against the race riots and stuff, and of course the South would love that, because of course Hubert was more for civil rights. Like I said, Nixon was more with the law and order candidate. So I think he would take the steep South, like Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, the states that Wallace won, Georgia, Florida. I think he would take South Carolina. Tennessee. I think he would take North Carolina, just like Wallace did. I believe he would also take my home state of Virginia, because of course he would get good support up here, and he actually did do pretty good in the rural parts too. And so did Wallace, with him being on the ballot. I believe Nixon will hold him to that without Wallace, because of course the state went Republican until about this time, up to 2008. And these other states like Kentucky, I believe will go to Nixon. Because like I said, Hubert Humphrey being more for civil rights, the Deep South didn't like them, and Nixon was more law and order candidate, so of course they want something to be done against the race riots. And same in Missouri here, and much of these other states like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, I think would go for Nixon, because he was really liked in this region, especially Ohio. I went for him. Even, actually West Virginia here, I believe it still go Humphrey, because it was more of a Democratic state back then, and the coal miners really loved Democrats, but now they really love Republicans, so I think that would still go for him. Pennsylvania, Humphrey actually did win against Nixon, so if Nixon couldn't win it with Wallace on the ballot, he probably wouldn't win it without him, so I think Humphrey still take that. And I got Hawaii down here, I believe that still go Humphrey easily. And of course, his home state of Minnesota, I loved Humphrey, so that would go for him. Well, Nixon did win Wisconsin, so I believe that would still go for him, because he had pretty good support in this state in the elections they ran in and won. However, Michigan did go for Humphrey because more of the union working class people loved Humphrey, especially in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, so I believe Michigan will still go for him. Now, Nixon's home state, everybody says it's California, which it is, but however, Nixon was living in New York at the time, so they consider that his home state when he was running. However, he didn't win it, but he did do so good in the state. But of course, New York City and the more populated areas went for Humphrey, which gave him the victory, which I believe will still go to him. And without Wallace on the ballot, other states like Vermont and New Hampshire did go for Nixon, more red-leaning back in the day, so I believe they still go for him. Humphrey did win Maine, pretty good margins, so I believe that would go for him as well. Massachusetts went for Humphrey as well, more of a liberal state back then, still is, I believe, would go for him. Connecticut and New Jersey actually did go for Humphrey, but it was pretty close. Of course, Wallace took away a pretty good chunk of vote. However, since Nixon didn't win it against Humphrey, that would probably still go for him, as well as Rhode Island, I believe. Let me check real quick. Yeah, Humphrey did win Rhode Island pretty well, and Wallace actually wasn't on the ballot in that state, so I believe that would still go for him. However, New Jersey here was more of a red state back then, so I believe that would go for Nixon, as well as Delaware. I believe that went for him. Let me double check. Oops. Yes, it did. Delaware did go for Nixon, so I believe that would go for him. Because, like I said, they were more red-leaning states back then, as well as Connecticut and New Jersey, actually, but they were kind of like swing states, I guess, back in the day, but they went for Humphrey, so I believe it would go for him without Wallace on the ballot as well. And now Maryland and D.C. Maryland did actually go for Humphrey, so I believe that would go to him, especially with Wallace on the ballot. He get more support than he did with Wallace on the ballot, and as well as D.C., which votes for Democrats a lot, of course. So anyway, that's my final map here, 377 to Humphrey's 161. Like I said, with Wallace not on the ballot, I believe Nixon would definitely sweep the Deep South because it was more for law and order against the race riots, and of course Humphrey was for civil rights, so he definitely wouldn't do good in these states. However, Texas is kind of an exception because, like I said, he did win it against Nixon and with Wallace on the ballot, because Wallace actually did take a pretty good chunk of votes, like over here in the eastern part. So I believe Humphrey could still take it since Nixon did not win it with Wallace on the ballot, because same Texans love Humphrey just like they did Johnson when Johnson was president and Humphrey was VP. So anyway, like I said, that's my final map. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you have not yet. Hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time.